Disney Channel original movies are typically known for incorporating stars from Disney shows that were popular around that time. But I don't think there is a single more star-studded original movie cast than the one present in 2009's Dadnapped, a movie starring Hannah Montana's Emily Osment, Jason Earls, Moises Arias, and some others that we will talk about later. Ever since I've been covering Disney movies on this channel, this movie is one that I've seen tossed around quite a lot, with many people saying I should take a crack at giving it the old Mr. Nostalgia review treatment. So today, finally, is that day. But, like always, is this an example of something not aging all that well, or will I be surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie? I don't know, I genuinely haven't watched it yet. The intros are always the first thing that I do for these kind of videos. I'm excited to check this one out though. I think maybe I've seen it at some point, as I definitely remember when it was being advertised, but I don't think I can recall much of anything from it. Let's see what I can dig up though. Join me, Mr. Nostalgia, as I review the heavily requested late 2000s Disney Channel original movie, Dadnapped.
Now you can go to
Dadnapped premiered on Disney Channel on February 19th, 2009. It's directed by Paul Hohen, who might just be in the Disney Channel Hall of Fame. He's got a stacked resume as a director, being linked to movies like Cheetah Girls 3, Camp Rock 2, all 4 zombie movies, Jump In, Let It Shine, and many, many more. He's directed well over 10 DCOMs, while also working on a few shows as well. Yeah, put his jersey in the rafters. He's a legend. Speaking of Disney Channel legends, this movie is filled to the brim with them. From Hannah Montana, we have Emily Osment, Moises Arias, and Jason Earls. From Wizard of Waverly Place, we have David Henry. And from Sweet Life, we have Phil Lewis. But wait, there's more. We got a couple non-Disney goats in this movie too. From the All That Seasons That Nobody Watched, we have Denzel Whitaker, and we got the voice of one of the best Superman adaptations of all time, George Newbern. My guy. As stated in the intro, Disney would almost always take actors from their shows airing around that time and stick them in their movies. It was a way to not only flesh out the careers of their stars and turn them into bigger names, but also a way to get kids to care about the movie. And it's a good strategy because as a kid, I personally didn't watch an original movie unless an actor that I liked was in it. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. In a way, this movie is kind of like a Disney Channel's Swindle. Is it as good as Swindle was though? Well, let's find out. The movie mainly centers around 15-year-old Melissa Morris, who, although doesn't live with her dad thanks to a divorce, still feels his presence every day thanks to the fact that he's actually a record-selling novelist, known for creating the hits by a graphic novel character, Trip Zoom. Despite not quite getting the hype around the book series, she's still very excited to see her dad, who is coming to pick her up so they can go on a daddy-daughter winter break vacation. Within the first 10 minutes, a couple things are established. One, it's quite obvious why Melissa's parents are divorced. While I'm sure he does love his daughter, he does tend to get very caught up in his work, especially since his career has really taken off. So because of that, he tends to come across as a little too locked in on the grind for his own good, or family. As soon as he comes in, with a cutout of his character mind you, he immediately starts blabbering about him, doesn't even ask how his daughter is. I mean, look man, you are getting the bag, and I would never take that away from you. But like, you do got a wife and kid, well, not a wife anymore, but you do got a kid who was very excited to spend some time with you. Another thing that gets established is, Melissa's got a couple screws loose. I say that jokingly, but in all actuality, her character has this thing where Trip kind of shows up in her head as sort of like an annoying older brother type figure that always gets all the attention. And the more this happens, the more it's obvious that a lot of this actually just kind of comes from jealousy and even her own self-doubt that she'll ever be enough to reclaim the #1 spot in her dad's heart. And when these little scenes are subtle, they're fine. But the reason why I say she might have a few screws loose is because she tends to have full conversations with this imaginary figure in her head in public where people can see her. And that's when it starts to get a little tiring and kind of concerning. Like, sis, you all right up there? I totally get why this is used, but I honestly think a more Lizzie McGuire approach would have been a lot better, especially if you also were to turn Trip into a cartoon character. Sometimes their back and forth banter takes me out of the movie, especially when I realize how insane this actually is. The part that's not insane though is Melissa believing that her dad cares about Trip more than her, because while they're on their way to their destination, Neil, Melissa's dad, reveals that he has to take a quick pit stop at a Trip Zoom convention so he can judge a contest. And then after that, it'll just be the two of them. See what I mean? This dude does not have his priorities. They arrive at the hotel that the convention is being held at, and man am I getting flashbacks to GalaxyCon. While trying to check in, Neil and Melissa meet Merv Kilbell, the owner of this interesting establishment.
It's top notch. Nothing but the best for you, Daddy.
I'm sorry, what? At the hotel, we're introduced to two different groups of people, both up to something mischievous involving Neil. But neither get much clarification until much later. Group 1 consists of Sheldon, Andre, and Wheeze, a bunch of nerdy kids, and Group 2 consists of Skunk and Maurice, a bunch of nerdy adults. The latter group is your classic big dope and regular straight man criminal trope found in almost every movie ever made. Oh, and also apparently they're brothers. Must be a pair of king situation or something.
What's the matter? Plan's not working out?
You got something to say? Say it to the wall.
She's totally judging her so hard right now. The next day during the competition, which is designed for Trip fans to show off just how much of a fan they are, Group 1 begins to activate their mysterious plan involving onions? Lots and lots of onions. This starts to not only stink up the place, but make everyone run out with tears in their eyes, like they just came out of the theater watching Marley and Me. While everyone's making their way to their exits, Andre grabs Neil and escorts him out the building, saying that he has an explanation for everything happening. And for whatever reason, Neil just casually decides to listen to this 10-year-old. Unaffected by all this mayhem is Melissa, who stepped outside to speak to her mom, and I guess Trip, too. Once she sees what's happening, she immediately tries to find her dad, but unbeknownst to her, he kinda got kidnapped. Or should I say, no, I'm not gonna say that. Also stepping out of the hotel are Maurice and Skunk, just in time to see their target get stolen. Thinking fast, they decide to steal a nearby truck in hopes to catch up to them.
If one chopped onion makes my mom cry when she's making lasagna, think what 1,000 chopped onions will do to a room full of scum agents. He smiled, his perfect teeth a-glitter.
Wait, why didn't they add the actual little star shine effect? The editors for this movie had one job. There, here you go, a bunch of lazies. Melissa and Merv are able to see via security cameras everything that went down earlier, so she calls the police, but thanks to a bunch of fans already submitting in a bunch of fake phone calls earlier in the week, he's not very receptive to her claims and instead just hangs up. Taking matters into her own hands, she decides to call her dad to see where she is. The boys let them talk to each other, and understandably, Melissa is under the impression that her dad flaked on her again. He tries to explain that that's not the case, but before he can, the phone gets taken away from him by Wheeze. And it's then when Melissa finds out who's responsible for her father's kidnapping. See, earlier in the movie, Melissa actually had a conversation with Wheeze, and thanks to them having a similar one just now, she's quickly able to deduce who she's talking to. She's also able to deduce, thanks to overhearing a car wash employee, where their location is. So, Melissa does something that every teenager in the world has been told not to do and gets in a car with a complete stranger. Merv. The two of them head to the car wash to see if they can find them, and although they don't, they do, however, find themselves in quite the predicament.
My car!
Found the brake.
Great.
We'll be right back with the Disney Channel original movie, Dadnapped. Now, let's get back to the Disney Channel original movie, Dadnapped.
After their little run-in with the car wash, Melissa notices a book that was left behind that just so happens to be due today. Simultaneously, Andre realizes that his book is also due as well, and Neil warns them that if they don't turn it in, then they're going to get fined. So they have no choice but to head to the library to turn the book in, something that Melissa is really counting on them doing. Which is bold of her, because considering the book was already left behind, you'd think that she'd assume that they wouldn't go to the library since there's no book to return, but I guess she went with her gut. Thing is though, while returning the book was one of the things they wanted to accomplish at the library, they also wanted Neil to teach them some sort of trap that was used in one of the Trip Zoom novels. And of course, the person that ends up falling for it is none other than Melissa. Man, this is like that scene in Freaks and Geeks where Velma and her friend slime her little brother. I don't really know the context of that scene. I just be seeing it in my Instagram reels from time to time. Rightfully so, Melissa is pretty annoyed, not just because her face is a mess, but also because while her dad has been spending time hanging out with the dudes named Wheeze, she's been wanting him to spend time with her instead.
Dad, we're leaving now. Let's get this stuff off my face.
Sorry, guys. Gotta go.
Sorry guys, I gotta go be a father. This dude's a jerk. Outside of the library, Melissa tries to tell her dad the issue with how he's been handling this trip so far and how she was eagerly anticipating spending time with him, but instead they're constantly getting roped up in a bunch of nonsense, a lot of which being his fault. As if things couldn't get any worse, Maurice and Skunk, who seemingly are also trying to kidnap Neil, finally catch up to him and pretend that they're officers. This doesn't really work though because Neil immediately recognizes them both from being at the convention. It also doesn't work because they try to intimidate him with a stapler, which is something that can only work in Batman Begins. Regardless, even if their facade isn't working, the idiots resort to handcuffing Neil anyway. But quickly, not even questioning what's happening or where this will lead, Melissa puts her wrist in the other cuff, ensuring that she will not be separated from her dad again. You know, this is where the movie, I won't say lost me, but heavily confused me. I was always under the assumption, judging off of the posters and the title of the movie, that the dad got kidnapped and then Emily Osment had to find him with the help of her friends or something. And while part of that kind of happened earlier in the movie, for the rest of the movie now, it seems that Melissa and Neil will be spending time together. Which I mean is great for Melissa, but I don't know, I definitely wasn't expecting this. The main story is about Melissa and her dad both getting kidnapped, so if that was the case, I do find it a little weird that the entire thing is called Dadnapped. Maybe I'm just nitpicky though. Maurice and Skunk take Melissa and Neil to their weird, creepy, abandoned car shop that they've since turned into their home, with the rest of the boys following closely behind them in an attempt to get them back. It's through this scene where we find out why exactly these two brothers went through such great lengths to kidnap Neil. See, Skunk is an aspiring writer who has a lot of ideas, but because he has the IQ of your average Zack Snyder fanboy, he has no idea how to properly execute them. Throughout the entire movie, so far, he's been dropping one-liners that sound kind of, I guess, a little fitting for the scenario that they're in, but really make no sense.
He adjusts the disguise. A colander of deception.
Do you even know what a colander is, Skunk? Do you? Because I don't. But I can still tell you, there is no such thing as a colander of deception.
So the reason why they nabbed Neil is so he could edit and fix his story. That's it. That's why they did all that stuff.
Not read, to fix. Fix my brother's book. See, my brother needs
A brain scarecrow?
You know, I've been watching a lot of Georgie and Mandy lately, that new Young Sheldon spinoff. First of all, I actually really like it. And second of all, it's that show that made me realize that Emily Osment is actually very funny. Like, her one-liners can be really killer sometimes. And that scene there kind of reminded me of that. Season 2 coming soon. Can't wait.
because the way that I see it, until you fix the book, you're not leaving.
Well, let's hope Neil isn't a Matt Reeves type of writer where he takes his sweet old time in between scripts. I'm just kidding, Matt. I will eagerly await the Batman 2. While Neil fixes up Skunk's book, him and Melissa have a nice conversation, revealing that she actually does read all of his books. She's just not a complete nerd about it. However, this conversation starts to turn a bit sour when Neil calls one of her ideas to escape silly. And that's when Melissa brings up how she feels that he thinks Trip is a lot cooler than her, which is why he never writes about her. And I mean, he is kind of cooler than you, I'm not gonna lie. If I had a kid and I had to choose between writing about them or like Batman or something, you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna finish that. And to my future kid, if you do end up existing, I'm just joking, all right? You're great. I hope at least.
Sweetheart, characters they're dynamic. They're larger than life. They're capable of extraordinary things.
Wow, he just called you boring. That's crazy. Dad. I see why his mom dumped him. He didn't deserve her anyway. You kidding me? This then leads to Melissa revealing that he's missed a bunch of important milestones in her life. Her dance recitals, her writing contest awards, both of them, matter of fact. He tries to argue how Trip doesn't actually come first in his life, but it's extremely evident that he does. I can read in between the lines, although it's never outwardly stated, that's probably why they split up. The crazy thing is, he don't even seem that mad about it. He fumbled his wife over a bootleg YA version of Flash Gordon. Their heart-to-heart is broken up by some police sirens, which although are revealed to just be Wheeze and his friends, still manage to scare off everyone else who aren't privy to the situation. This leads to them evacuating their house, if you want to call it that, and hopping right back into their truck, where they'll have to continue their editing process. However, this proves to be a bit of a challenge, as Wheeze and his friends are close behind them. So then, Skunk just starts throwing a bunch of clothes and later a whole hanging rack at their car, which stops them in their tracks, which is absolutely crazy. Like, these are a bunch of kids at the end of the day, which is something that Neil even points out.
We're almost out of gas.
Hey, when you find a station, I have to go to the bathroom.
It's okay, Mo. I'll go with her.
What?
What?
I mean, I'll stand by the door.
I mean, I'll stand by. Nah, I know what you are.
Yeah, that's all.
What are you doing?
What? I'm cold.
Fine.
Hey!
Yo, stop touching her, you weirdo.
You don't like me very much, do you?
Nah, but I know you like her. The only thing creepier than Skunk Schneider over here is the bathroom that Melissa walks into.
I'd kill for a comb.
Nah! Oh, okay. I thought that was Skunk for a second. Melissa has one of her trip hallucinations again, where the two go back and forth on if she's really Zoom enough to escape. And it's through this scene where Melissa realizes that because of the fact that this whole time Trip has been telling her what to do while in her head, that means that she is actually thinking like him. This whole movie, Trip has been telling her what to do in certain situations, which in effect just means that Melissa already kind of knew what to do. She just used Trip as a way to break it down to her. You know what's funny? This actually reminds me a lot of the Cartoon Network show Out of Jimmy's Head, where the main character sees cartoons and even talks to them. But this is literally only because of the fact that he got hit by a train or something and needed a brain transplant, so they gave him the brain of a famous cartoonist. Wow, that's definitely one of the sentences of all time. No wonder why the show only lasted one season. Fun fact, Tanashi was in it. Back to Dadnapped. Having this newfound confidence in herself, Melissa comes up with a plan where she uses a page from the book she has on her and circles the word presidential using her lip gloss, which is something Wheeze commented on earlier, because in classic Disney movie fashion, they kind of like each other, but also don't like each other. She leaves it behind in the bathroom, hoping that Wheeze or someone from that group will find it and realize the presidential means presidential suite back at the hotel that this all started in.
Whoa!
Sorry, I just...
All right, this dude's really starting to tick me off. Turns out Melissa's plan was actually pretty genius, as not only does she convince Maurice to take them back to the hotel so her dad can finish writing, but also the boys do end up finding a coat and a trail of toilet paper left behind by Melissa on purpose.
She circled the word presidential. Well, how do you know it's from her? Watermelon flavored lip gloss.
Am I the only one that remembers when David Henry got arrested in 2018 for trying to sneak a loaded gun into an airport? You know what the crazy thing is? That I didn't even realize until now? He did this on 9/11. So, you know, I'm just curious. I wonder what was going on in bro's mind that day. When everyone gets back to the hotel, they're greeted by Jason Earle's character, Merv Kilbo, who reveals that all of this was actually a plan set up by him. For Skunk and Maurice are actually his employees. Merv goes on to reveal that that's why he went with Melissa to get Neil back after he was kidnapped by the kids, because that whole situation put a little damper on his plans. And then, speaking of dampening plans, instead of taking them to the presidential suite, they decided to take them to Merv's room instead, making it harder for Wheeze and company to locate them. Though I will say, Merv is kind of balling with this crib, I'm not gonna lie. There are worse rooms to be held captive in. Wheeze and his friends managed to get dropped off by a pizza dude and immediately asked for help from the fellow convention goers to find Neil and Melissa. Using a bunch of ideas inspired by the Trip Zoom canon, all of them get to work to find their creative idol. This montage is set to Hero in Me by Emily Osmond. It's definitely a song to say the least.
From the uprising plot in Zoom Time Boom Time?
Dad, it's a good solid idea, and it came from you.
I don't know. You really think it'll work?
Dude, when I watched this movie for this review, I could not stop laughing and rewinding because I thought the concept of someone using the bathroom and then immediately staring people down is hilarious. I don't know, maybe my sense of humor is just broken, but this is gonna be how I start staring people down after using the bathroom. Wait a minute! He didn't wash his hands! No, hold on. I ain't hear no water running and nobody flushed the toilet after washing their hands, because that just means you're gonna touch something else that people commonly touch. I don't want to hear it. He's nasty. Both of them are nasty, but for different reasons. Man, I hate these two. They should switch names because it's much more fitting for the dude who don't wash his hands to be named Skunk. Melissa and Neil have another heart-to-heart after Melissa says something that Neil wrote into his books because of her, later revealing that a lot of the things that Trip does are actually inspired by her, and like, all right, bro, this dude capping. He lying. He should have said that earlier in the movie when his daughter was next to tears over him choosing to write about Trip instead of her. I don't believe for a single second that he didn't just come up with that now.
I hear whispering. I don't like whispering.
You don't like washing your hands either. It's a faucet right there too. Go ahead, do it. Murph walks in and asks for some progress on the book. And it's this that finally leads to an explanation on why all of this is happening. You see, he doesn't really care about helping Skunk. He just wanted to find a way to manage to get a book written by Neil, which he can then advertise as the last book written by Neil, if you catch my drift. This is news to both Skunk and Maurice, who thought that this whole time he was just trying to help out Skunk.
And the last Trip Zoom book means no more me. Trip Zoom? That is not okay. Talk about this later.
No one questioned why she just did that, bruh. Her dad gotta be like, oh, I'm gonna have to talk to her mom about this. This happens way too often. As an incentive to get the book done, he decides to tell Neil that the only way he'll see his daughter again is by finishing it. Until then, she'll be locked in the bathroom. Maurice and Skunk are also in a sticky situation as well, because they can't even back out. They've already done a couple crimes that'll be worth 5 years in jail. So they have no choice but to help him carry out this plan, or else Merv is gonna start snitching. While in the bathroom, Melissa comes up with an idea originally taken from one of the books, where she makes a zoom signal and flashes it out the window. The kids are able to spot it, and once they do, they, well, attack. While they're being attacked, Merv decides it's best if they relocate. So while he grabs Neil, Maurice and Skunk grab Melissa. And yeah, relocating isn't much of an option either. Melissa escapes the grasp of the two brothers and meets up with Wheeze and Andre. From there, they tie up Skunk and Maurice and already escalate to handholding. Wow. The mob of kids manage to stop Merv from putting Neil in his car, bombarding them with an assortment of everything? Merv tries to escape but quickly gets taken down by none other than Skunk and Maurice. Everyone starts celebrating a job well done as we cut back to the final day of the convention. Considering all of them prove just how zoomed they are, every person in attendance will receive an autographed copy of his next book. But the kids that truly get the spotlight are Andre, Sheldon, and Wheeze. Then Melissa has one more Trip hallucination where they kind of just put their beef aside, recognizing that although it is Trip who gets all the stories, Melissa is the reason why. Allegedly, at least. I still think the dude was capping. Regardless of if he is though, he still shouts out Melissa on stage, citing her as the motivation of why he writes the way he does. He then calls her up on stage and the two hug it out. Before they leave, Louise gives Melissa his phone number in case she ever wants to go on a date with him. She accepts it, but says that she'll only do it if he promises it'll just be them. No guys in weird costumes or anything reminiscent of the adventure that they just had. And he guarantees that it will be just a normal date. You know, Dadnapped gave me a feeling that I had never had before after watching a Disney Channel original movie. And that's disappointment, honestly. I finished DComs and felt annoyed and even angered because of how bad it was, but never have I ever felt disappointed, at least until now. I didn't have crazy high hopes for this movie in terms of quality, and you know, maybe this is my fault. I was expecting a totally different movie. I thought it would be a story of Melissa's dad going missing, so she enlists her friends from school to help find him or something. A story that obviously doesn't really work in real life, but isn't totally far removed from Disney Channel original movie reality where it couldn't be made. That's what I always thought this movie was about. To find out the whole kidnapping thing was just kind of wasted on a story like this, a story centered around an evil dude just trying to get a bag from this writer's work, it's kind of underwhelming. I feel like they could have done better, honestly. I would have done something more mystery based. A kid detective movie would have been sick. That's probably what I would have done with a project like this, at least. And I think with the story kind of being underwhelming, came a really boring second act after the main story finally settled in. The middle part of the movie is pretty lame and did not have me entertained much at all. Rarely do I ever have a problem with the decom story, usually it's the way they go about telling it. This is the rare example of a time though where a decom story is probably its weakest aspect. The movie's only really consistent saving grace is actually Emily Osment, both in her acting and the way her character was written. Aside from the whole talking to herself in public thing, I actually felt like Melissa was one of the strongest leads of a decom that I've seen recently. Whether it was her snarky one-liners or her entire arc in general throughout the movie, I found her to be a worthy character to surround an entire story around. She was very focused and determined throughout this movie, but the writers made sure to not make it seem like she was invincible. She had moments where she was scared, she had moments where she was sad, and moments where she just wanted to spend time with her dad. Actually, speaking of him, he was just horrible. Not even his little redemption arc at the end could save that. I also wasn't the biggest fan of any of the villains in the movie, as you can gather. I also thought that Sheldon was just kind of there. They didn't really give him too much to do. And even with Weeze and Andre having more prominence in the story, I didn't feel much for them either, though they're far from being bad characters. Also, as boring as the movie could be at times, I will say the cast and crew sure knew how to throw together some fun sequences. The last maybe 10 minutes of the movie were actually pretty action-packed. Seeing all the kids work together kind of reminded me of something we'd see in like Kids Next Door or Jimmy Neutron or something. The movie in general wrapped up pretty well, despite its decent to mid first two acts. I don't think the main issue at hand of Neil not being the best father was handled all that well. I don't think him saying that Trip was largely influenced off of Melissa is enough to make all of the genuine neglect and bad parenting on his part okay. A scene where he tells her that she was right and promises to do a better job from now on would have been a good place to start. But we can't just ignore the fact that it is still kind of true that he prioritized his career over his own daughter. I mean, when we're first introduced to him, he doesn't even ask how his daughter is doing and instead just glazes himself about how well his books are doing. I feel the writers could have been a little bit better with that. Overall though, it's a pretty average decom with more cons than pros, but there are significantly worse examples out there. Plus, it took place during the fall, and I love a movie that takes place during the fall. I don't know what it is, like the atmosphere, you know, like the leaves on the ground, the coats, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But I'm willing to give this movie a 6 out of 10. I want to know what you think about the movie though. Let me know in the comments below. Check out my Patreon if you want to see content earlier than everyone else. And also subscribe to my second channel, simply titled Nostalgia, for more of me. If you're new, feel free to subscribe and hit that like button. And like always, I am Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.